And today we are tackling a figure who is, well, one of the most confusing contradictions in ancient Indian thought, the Vratya.
It's a spectacular one because on one hand, you have sources defining the Vratya as basically an unworthy social outcast.
A failure.
Exactly, someone who missed a crucial deadline. But then you look at older traditions and he's described as the supreme cosmic creator, a being that existed before the universe itself.
And that's the conflict we want to unpack. What is this wild swing from, uninitiated failure all the way to cosmic architect? Tell us about early Vedic society.
Our mission is to trace that history. We'll start with the rigid later rules and then travel back to find this profound mystical origin.
It's the difference between a filing error and a deity.
It really is. We need to see how that definition could have shifted so violently.
Okay, let's unpack this. So we should probably start where most people would run into this term, which is in the later Smriti literature, texts like the Manu Smriti. Right. And here, the Vratya is boiled down to a purely legal, purely social category. The key term they use is savitri patita.
Savitri Patita, what does that mean exactly?
It translates literally as someone who has fallen from the Savitri mantra. But what it really means in practice is that this person missed the deadline for their upanayana ceremony.
And the upanayana is that critical initiation, right? The ceremony that lets you study the sacred texts and perform the big sacrifices.
It's the gateway to full participation in the Vedic tradition. Without it, you're on the outside looking in.
And you mentioned deadlines. These weren't just suggestions, were they?
Oh, not at all. They were incredibly strict and they were based on your social class, your varna.
Can you lay those out for us?
Sure. So if you were a Brahmin, your ideal initiation age was around 8, but you had a hard cutoff at 16.
16, okay.
For a Kshatriya, the warrior class, the ideal was 11, with the final cutoff at 22. And for a Vaishya, it was 12, with a hard limit at 24.
So if a Brahmin boy turns 17, he's not just late. The window it's just closed.
It's slammed shut, and the consequences were, well, devastating. The moment you passed that maximum age, you were branded a Vratya.
And that meant no studying the Vedas.
No studying the Vedas, no performing the standard sacrifices. And what's more, the Smritis told everyone else to keep their distance, not just from you, but from your entire family.
Wow. So it's a kind of social contamination.
It is. Unless you perform these really arduous expiation rites, the prayashchitta, you were just permanently blocked.
It sounds like the ultimate spiritual filing error. You miss a bureaucratic deadline, and your spiritual life is over.
Precisely. This later view just simplifies the Vratya into a nonconformist. But that's only one side of the story. And it's only possible if you ignore a much, much older tradition.
Which seems almost impossible that the same culture produced both of these ideas. So to get to the other side, we have to go back further.
We have to go back to the Atharvaveda Samhita.
And here the story is completely different.
A complete inversion. In the Atharvaveda, especially in the Shaunaka school's version, the Vratya is a huge deal.
They didn't just mention him in passing.
Far from it. They dedicated an entire book 15 to him. They call it the Vratya Kannada, the section on the Vratya.
An entire book for someone who's supposedly just an outcast.
That's the scale of the contradiction right there.
Wow.
And within that book, the text describes 2 distinct types of Vratya.
2 types.
Yes. The first is the supreme being, a cosmic principle, a god. And the second type is the human Vratyas, who are the followers of this cosmic cult.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Okay, so let's focus on that first type, the supreme Vratya. He's not just another god in the pantheon.
No, he's positioned as the primordial force itself. The text says he was the initial principle, the guide for Prajapati, the traditional creator god. He basically gave creation its starting push.
He's at the very foundation of the cosmos then.
The absolute foundation. And you see this in the names they give him. The text attributes these powerful epithets like Mahadeva and Ishana directly to the Vratya.
Wait, Mahadeva and Ishana? Those are names that later become totally synonymous with Shiva.
Exactly. The text even says the Vratya was the one who appointed different powerful forms, like Rudra, Pashupati, Ugrat, to rule over the different directions of the universe. He's like a cosmic general assigning his lieutenants.
And there's that amazing visual of his weapon. He carries the Indradanu.
The rainbow, yes. He holds the rainbow as his bow. And it's not just for show. It symbolizes his universal power.
How so?
Well, the source says the bow is dual purpose. The blue side is for dealing with the Anuvratya. It likely refers to, non-compliant relatives or followers within the cult itself, people who need correction.
So an internal discipline first.
Exactly. And the red side of the bow is for killing external enemies, the Vishada. So he's a judge of both his own followers and of outsiders.
The scale is just immense. And the description of his throne, his cosmic seat, connects him to that other primordial being, the Purusha from the Rig Veda.
The parallel is very explicit. The gods themselves make a throne for him and a sandhi, and its 4 legs are the 4 seasons: summer, spring, autumn, the rainy season.
His very body is the universe.
Just like the Purusha, the sun and the moon are his 2 eyes, fire and the wind, Vayu are his ears, day and night are his nostrils, and the entire year, the Samvatsara, is his head.
It couldn't be clearer. This is not an outcast. This is the source of everything.
And the text says that just by knowing this, by understanding the Vratya, you gain everything: water, faith, control. He is the source of all benefits.
So now that we have the deity, what about his followers, the human Vratyas?
These were typically wandering ascetics, and the Atharvaveda gives them immense magical power, so much so that there are these incredibly specific hospitality rules for anyone who encounters them.
So how you treated one of these ascetics could literally change your fate.
It was a matter of fortune or calamity. I mean, get this. If a Vratya showed up at a king's home, the king had to welcome him properly. If he did, the text promises his royal power would last forever. His kingdom would never be destroyed.
Just from being a good host to one wandering ascetic.
That's the scale of their power. And it wasn't just for kings. An ordinary householder had to follow a script, greet him, offer water, and most importantly, say good words like, "May it please you."
And what's the magical reward for just being polite?
The text says that by doing that, the householder attains the heavenly path, the Dvayana. They gain spiritual breath, prana, and all their pleasing wishes are fulfilled.
It's like the Vratya is a spiritual mirror. Your kindness just gets reflected back, but amplified.
A perfect way to put it. But what's really staggering is that this rule, this deference, it even applied to the most ritually pure person in society, the Ahitani.
The Ahitani.
Yeah.
That's the householder who maintains the 3 sacred fires, right? The pillar of the whole Vedic ritual system.
The absolute pillar. But if a Vratya is visiting, the Ahitani has to stop everything. He must ask the Vratya's permission before he can offer his daily sacred oblations.
Hold on. A dedicated ritualist has to pause his most important sacred duty, a duty to the gods of the fire, to ask permission from a wandering, non-Vedic ascetic.
Yes. And if he doesn't, if he just ignores the Vratya and does his ritual anyway, the source says he loses knowledge of both the path of the gods and the path of the ancestors.
That one rule tells you everything. The ascetic Vratya's spiritual authority completely overrides the established fire rituals.
It's an unbelievable inversion of the hierarchy. And their power even grows the longer they stay with you.
Right, the nightly calculation.
Exactly. It's like a spiritual investment. If he stays 1 night, you get all the merits of the earth.
2 nights.
Merits of space, the antariksha. 3 nights gets you the merits of heaven, or svarga.
And what if they stay for 4 more nights?
Then you receive the merits of the worlds of all meritorious persons, the punyaloka. You essentially hit the spiritual jackpot.
The last detail here is the most surprising, I think. It shows the power was in the idea of the Vratya, not just the individual.
It's an incredible point. The text explicitly tells us that even if the guest is a pseudo-Vratya, someone just in disguise, not a real follower, if you let him stay, you, the householder, get all the exact same benefits.
So you weren't even supposed to question their credentials?
No. The act of reverence toward the ascetic ideal itself is what generated the merit.
Okay, so we have the Smriti literature saying the Vratya is a spiritual nobody who missed a deadline. And we have the Atharvaveda saying he's a cosmic god whose followers are revered, magic-wielding, holy men.
The contrast could not be more stark.
So how do we resolve this? I think we have to look at the one ritual that connects them, the Vratya stoma sacrifice.
Right. The later Smriti texts say this was the rite a Vratya performed to get back in, to be assimilated into the Vedic fold.
But there's a huge problem with that interpretation, isn't there? A ritualistic flaw.
A massive one. The Vratya stoma is a soma sacrifice. And to perform any soma sacrifice, you have to be an ahitani. You have to have maintained the 3 sacred fires for at least a year.
So if a Vratya was, by definition, an uninitiated outcast,
he couldn't possibly have done the prerequisite rites to even be eligible. The ritual reality completely contradicts the later bureaucratic label.
this is where modern scholarship comes in with a really elegant solution. Professor Ganesh Thait looked at the older texts and came up with a revolutionary theory.
He did. He argues the Vrachastoma wasn't an entry rite at all.
It was an exit rite.
Exactly. It was a final closing ceremony performed by an established high-status ritualist, a Nahitanyi, to formally leave the Vedic system.
So they weren't trying to get in, they were choosing to get out,
Mm-hmm.
to embrace the Vratya way of life, to become a kind of first monk.
It implies this profound spiritual choice. If the Vratya path was already seen as this powerful alternative way to gain merit, which the Atharvaveda clearly shows it was, then the rite wasn't about assimilation, it was about choosing liberation through asceticism.
So connecting all the dots, the Vratya wasn't a failure. He was the embodiment of a respected alternative spiritual path that existed alongside and maybe even predated movements like Buddhism and Jainism.
The reference is overwhelming. The Atharvaveda proves there was this cult where the supreme god was the Vratya, and his followers were given immense social and magical honor. These alternative, non-ritual paths weren't marginal. They were a vital, influential part of the whole spiritual landscape.
So what does this all mean then? I think the story of the Vratya is a classic case of history simplifying things. The later Smriti texts, they're aiming for uniformity, so they took this figure of cosmic importance and magical reverence, and they just flattened him into a negative label.
A bureaucratic category. The person who missed a deadline. The complexity of a spiritual choice was erased to enforce conformity.
It's historical revisionism right there in the text.
It is. The sheer reverence commanded by the human Vratya, the fact that kings and top ritualists had to defer to him, shows that this path was not just tolerated. For many people, it was seen as spiritually superior. They were the ultimate outsiders who held the keys to the cosmos.
It really makes you wonder, if the Vratya was one of these earliest, highly revered ascetic sects, a pathway to the divine that didn't follow the official rules, how many other ancient non-traditional paths have been similarly simplified or just erased by later, stricter laws? What other revered outsiders are just waiting to be rediscovered in the oldest layers of these texts?
I'm going to chew on.
Definitely. Something to think about until our next deep dive.